Hello and welcome to the Business Success Show. I'm your host, Kim Davis, and during this podcast series, I'll be interviewing the leaders of the world's most iconic brands to discover the secrets to their success. Plus, I'll be sharing with you tips and ideas on how you can apply these lessons to your own life and work. So come with me as your next business success lesson starts now. Today, I am joined by the one and only Rose Sandy, who works over at HarperCollins as the publishing director for HQ Nonfiction, which, as I understand it, is a new job. Is that right, Rose?
It is a brand new job. It's
Amazing.
A brand new position in an amazing imprint, which is basically a division that we publish books through at HarperCollins. We've got many divisions, and this is one of them.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to you. So thank you for joining me today.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Right. So the first thing I want to start off with, especially considering that you come from the publishing world over at HarperCollins, I want to get your story. So where did your story begin and how did you get to HarperCollins and this accomplished career that you have today?
Oh, wow. It's how much time do you have? Anyway, I'll keep it short, but I've always just been intrigued by books. I was a bookworm. Growing up, I read, I was an avid reader. I loved story. I'm the biggest fan of story, however story is told. Let's start there. That's me, that's Rose. Although my career wasn't necessarily in publishing, so I did not start in publishing. I worked for big companies. I worked for Sony for a long time. I worked for the Coca-Cola company. I worked for Cisco, and all those skills, all those skills just helped. In many ways, the skills I learned there, the experience I had there, helped me get to where I am today. And it was a door opener. But in terms of publishing, living in London, this is where publishing is, or a lot of publishing is. So I actually came to HarperCollins when I was in between, when I was changing roles, and I took some time out. My children were very small, so I wanted to make sure I was making the right decisions for us as a family. And in that time, I started a publishing company. And that was done through my research, my interest. It was a hobby, but I thought I'm really going to learn as much as I can about publishing. And I started writing, and I wrote my first novel, and I was very intrigued, because it did really well in the Amazon charts. And before I knew it, I had this mini following for this character I was writing about. So that today is about 8 books in it. So with that on one side, I had a very good friend who worked within HarperCollins, and we were really good friends. We're practically neighbors in the same neighborhood. And we actually lived not too far from where the old HarperCollins building was. So she one day just suggested, there is this division in HarperCollins, and they would like some help around marketing and some strategy around some books, and some very niche books, which at that time were Bibles and sort of that religion and spirituality area. And I thought, well, you know what, I can do that for a couple of days while I run my other business and try to figure out this whole thing that I'm doing with publishing. And literally went and worked for our division there, William Collins, which is in HarperCollins, another division, working on this project, really enjoyed it, and somehow got asked to do a bigger job through that process. And that bigger job was really what I've been doing at HarperCollins for 7 years, which is basically looking after the distribution business of our Christian books, bringing them in from the US and republishing them here, or finding a market for them. So it's basically been about distribution, importing books, distributing them in the UK, finding a way to the market, republishing them when we had to, looking for where we could place them with regards to UK tastes. And in that process, about 3 years ago, I saw the need to develop an imprint, which is basically a division, again, that specifically looks at inspirational publishing. and for both fiction and nonfiction. And we've done really well with that, and I'm very proud of that. And literally, that's how that's what I've been doing in HarperCollins, publishing books, distributing books, marketing books, and basically the whole end to end, from when you acquire books all the way to when I see them in bookstores. So looking after the whole, basically the whole chain, the whole process, and that's just been really fun.
Amazing.
And yeah,
I'm going to ask you a little bit more about the personal stuff that you've done in a little while. I want to focus at first on just the HarperCollins stuff. Let's talk about HarperCollins a little bit more. So obviously with COVID-19 and this pandemic, the world has changed. How has the world changed for HarperCollins and for you through this pandemic?
Well, the world has changed, and what we've seen in publishing is people have consumed more books. Not that they necessarily didn't before, but I think given the going into lockdowns and several lockdowns and schools shutting, children being more at home, there was a need for more, not only reading, but access to resources. And there are two things here. The first was resources for children's homeschooling. And as HarperCollins, we do quite a lot of education. We have a whole learning and education division called Collins Learning that provides provides books for schools. So there was a huge demand for that, and that really was very positive for HarperCollins. Fantastic. So there was that aspect. So that literally did significantly well, very, very well. And then if you look at the other part, is people having more time on their hands. There was a lot more digital reading and a lot people just looking for things to do. And what we saw was the backlist, what we call the backlist. It was very backlist driven, meaning people suddenly say, oh, I love that author. Haven't read all their books that they published 5-6 years ago. And so we saw a lot of people just looking at some of the old books we published, because it was very uncertain for what we call front list publishing. I think about 70% of the channels through which we sell books on the high street were closed. I'm talking about the first lockdown in the UK. So there was a lot of uncertainty around book selling, but somehow it was very clear, at least by the autumn, that publishing in many ways was winning, and people were buying books. Of course, the online retailers were doing significantly better. And so all in all, I think publishing, rightly or wrongly, won through this whole process. Amazing. And continues to do so. Yeah.
No, that's really fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. What about the office environment? What about going into the office? What have you guys, I'm guessing nobody's been in the office. So have you even seen your colleagues in the past year and a half?
Online a lot. So overnight, we literally went from about 99% working in the office to 100% at home.
Wow.
So there was a huge learning curve for, publishing is sort of an industry where I don't know if we always set the trends when it comes to working, but, we were in offices and it's books everywhere and it's paper everywhere. And all of a sudden we just had the computer at home. So it was a learning curve on learning how to work remotely and online together. But I would say it put us 13 years ahead in terms of how we work as the technology was available. Yeah. I'm so impressed with how, I can't speak for others, but how we as our IT divisions just literally were on it. And literally we did not miss a day. We did not miss anything. We went straight into working like this online. Amazing. And I think a lot of people didn't know they could do a lot of things online. And some meetings are better online now, we're finding, than maybe when we were sitting in a big room in news buildings. So we have seen people online, and then depending on what the government was doing and opening up and closing down. So our office has gone through that as well. So currently, at the time of recording, you can go into the office, but you need permission, and you need the offices have been rekitted maybe in a way that allows for social distancing and for all those government measures. So yes, I have been in the office, I think 4 times since the lockdown in March, and seen some colleagues. And we, I think we missed that. I think how many months now, 15, 18 months later, everybody misses working together and seeing each other. So when those moments are very special, when you actually go into the office and see people, it's like, yay, virtual hug.
Fantastic. Now be honest. People working at home from their pajamas, how many meetings did you go to in your pajamas? Or at least half pajamas, tops nice, pajama goodness. Bottoms. Tell me, be honest.
I'm sorry, just about every one. Are you kidding? You kind of do this
top is my pajamas. What are you talking about?
Actually, this is not my pajamas. Today, I'm actually fully dressed like for work, but slippers. Here's a funny story. The first time we went back into the office, we got into the office. There were a couple of colleagues, and we were like, do your feet hurt? Yeah. Yours too? Yeah, we haven't worn shoes in like how many months, like proper shoes. Our feet are hurting.
What are these things on my feet? I'm not free anymore. Yeah.
And there was that, and a lot of trends started about how to have the Zoom face and the makeup. So it was all about top up. So yeah, it's been very interesting to see.
What has been the funniest experience? A lot of people have had, you've seen probably on YouTube and whatnot, all these really embarrassing situations and really funny situations about what these Zoom calls have brought, or just whatever in general. And we've heard some really funny stories, and I'm wondering what might be one of the funniest stories and funniest or most embarrassing things that have happened to you during this pandemic.
Well, I don't know if mine are top up there as in funniest, but what I've seen is the pet explosion has just been amazing and incredible to see. You're in a Zoom call and the cat slowly walks and with the tail, and then we all have this ooh-ah moment. And I think, I don't know if I'd call it the funniest, but it's just made it all so much more human, There's always, in the beginning, there was all this, oh, what's behind you? What's that picture behind you? And everybody's just having this moment of, getting to know their colleagues on a different level.
Yeah.
I have heard stories of people trying to have a bathroom break, but that didn't happen to us.
There's been the videos, right? There's been the videos where people don't realize that the camera's still on and they take it into the bathroom with them. And you're like, what are you doing? We don't need to see this. Oh my God.
But it makes us all human, and it just makes, and I think, and we've had a lot of great moments. We've had Christmas parties online, and
amazing.
I think we had a Christmas party, and we've had a movie quiz night, and every team had to go on Zoom, and there was best costumes, so people are getting into it a little bit more. And I think we did Men in Black, and we just all came in, and I think we kind of won along with 2 other, I think the tax people also won as well. But yeah, we've just had a lot of great moments. I don't know if I can think of one of the funniest moments.
No, that's fine. It sounds like you're having a great time through COVID. So I'm really happy to hear that. That's really good. Fantastic. So going back to HarperCollins and publishing, and there's a lot of people who feel like they can write their own book, right? I'm sure you must get 10 million different applications every single day of people saying, I'm an author, I have a story to tell. So what is it that you're looking for? What separates people who really do have a story and can be an author versus, I know we all have a story, so I don't mean to take away from that, but just to simply say, what's the difference between somebody who actually is going to get signed versus somebody who, thank you very much, you're going to get your thank you, don't call us, we'll call you later.
There are many ways to answer that question. And the first thing I would advise anyone who would consider being published is to certainly do homework and realize that publishing is a business. It's not a charity. We have P&Ls to look at, and we, at the end of the day, we're in it. We have to not only make money, but sustain the business. So having that commercial awareness is something a lot of authors need to know. And also the second thing I would also advise is understanding how publishing works generally. Like publishing today, there's so many avenues to publishing. There is going what we would call the traditional way, which is basically like us, Harpercollins, where you have to get an agent because our publishers will not take unsolicited manuscripts. Now, there are exceptions. And also there is the other way of actually self-publishing. So there needs to be a general understanding of how the business model works. And so that's before you even think of writing, I would say, understand the commercial way publishing works, and also the avenues to publishing. So once you're there, the next level is to understand what divisions do. There's nothing like you want to write a YA book, and then you send it, and YA is considered children's or within the children's division, but then you send it to the fiction team because
YA being young adult.
Young adult, perhaps you've seen The Hunger Games or Divergent, and some of these books that have been, very, very successful, but understanding that those are published by children's divisions, and people make that mistake. So there is a lot of homework to do. So because that's one easy way to get rejected, is to send the wrong book to the wrong editor. And that might have nothing to do with the work or the actual written material, but you need to understand where you're sending your books. And if you're going the traditional route, your agent needs to know what publishers are looking for. So yeah, I think that's what, in a very, very quick way, separates those who get published or not. It is literally having a good book is just the ticket to play the game. Many people can write a good book. And these other layers of understanding publishing, what happens in a publishing house, editorial, where you stand. It's even simple things like writing a pitch and saying, oh, I'm the new, I don't know, Lee Child, I'm the new Dan Brown, and I'm, understanding what's selling today, what it looks and like. Understanding, like, if I'm going to write fiction, who is writing like me today and selling, not necessarily who wrote 10 years ago and was selling, because publishing moves on very quickly, trends come and go. So so this in a nutshell is some of the advice I would give. And obviously craft, you need to know the craft, understand the craft, and invest in yourself in the craft. It's the ticket to play, but then now you have to play the game, and that's the ticket to entry.
Yeah, I was explaining to somebody the other day that playing the game doesn't always mean manipulation and all that sort of stuff. Sometimes playing the game is chess. It's just understanding who are the pieces on the board, how do they work, and how are you going to advance ahead, right? Absolutely. So I think that's really great advice. So thank you for sharing that. A bit of a gossipy question now for you, which is working in the creative industry. And I think this is going to be something that listeners are going to love to know the answer to. You don't necessarily have to use names, although you're welcome to, but working in a creative industry, what are some of the most diva moments you've heard about?
Oh my word.
From authors.
Oh gosh, yeah, I certainly can't
so
name
many
names.
so many stories, so little time. We could do a whole podcast just on that.
it's just like any creative industry. You have to admire creative people because they're geniuses at what they do, and you find divas everywhere. It's not just in the creative industry. No, it's in any industry. So, I can't think of any. There are going to be moments, and it's going to be how you're interpreted on how big an author is versus how, what I value, maybe I frame it this way. What I value is a great working relationship with any author or any business partner. And I think it's down to having mutual respect for what the author brings to the table and what the publisher brings to the table. And I think that's how I like to work. I like to be able to know that we're all professionals here and we're all working to the same goal. So, and it's true. Yes, sometimes people forget that.
You're being very politically correct here, Rose. We want to hear about the tantrums and all green.
I'm being honest. I'm trying to see if I've seen a tantrum or a walkout or a you know,
puppies. I want 100 Dalmatians in my dressing room, kind of thing.
I'll be very honest. I saw that a lot more when I was working in the music industry.
Yeah, I bet you did. I bet you did. All right, so let's switch then. You mentioned some bits and pieces about self-publishing and how you started in self-publishing, and I believe you're still doing quite a lot in that realm with your Decrypter series. And I was wondering if you could tell us about that, because in addition to being part of HarperCollins, this massive conglomerate, you are on, you kind of are leading to a double life, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your side double life as the Decrypter.
Yeah.
Decrypter.
Well, I would say if I hadn't done the Decrypter, I don't think I'd be working at HarperCollins.
Okay, start with what the Decrypter is, though. So tell us a little bit more about that. I've kind of thrown you into the deep end with that. Yeah.
So like I said, I've always been a fan of story. For me, it all starts with story. However story is told and taken to market, however that is done, it's all about story. And the channels are just channels to the reader. And at the end of the day, I feel that the reader is always the ultimate gatekeeper. So when I didn't even know I was going to work in publishing, I wanted to write story. So I started this book, or this series called the Decrypter series. And the easiest way to understand it, it's a female James Bond with a Matrix twist. For those of you who might know that genre, it basically says what it does on the tin. You've got this real kick-ass gal who kind of represents any woman. She can be any woman, she can be from any culture, who finds herself in a man's world and with special gifts, and she's navigating technology and how. So the series are very much about how technology, where is it taking our world? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it changing humanity? And so it explores themes like that. And obviously it's fun. Amazing. I love adventure. So it's all about fun. It's all about travel, lots of countries. So I was doing that way before I joined HarperCollins. So in many ways, like in any job, there are lots of transferable skills. I was already publishing. So I created I launched my own publishing independent business and decided, and I didn't have to, but I decided I wanted to do it independently at that time. And maybe it's because I just wanted to get on with it, and that's it. And it has worked well for me. It's not for everyone. I'm not going to lie. It's not for everyone because there's a lot involved. You have to know what you're doing. Everything from editorial to distribution to metadata, to all that behind the scenes language we use in publishing. So in that way, all of that I did there prepared me for what I'm doing today in many ways, because you're it. When you're writing, you're the director, you're the casting director, you're the the boom man, you're everything, you're script writer, you're everything, your set, your props. And part of me just loves that. It's my happy place. But at the same time, I get to use all these skills that I bring to my day job, which is just fascinating. And one of the things I do is also mentor authors, and I have recently translated that into the Academy, which we've launched at HarperCollins. And I couldn't have done any of that without having gone through the processes myself. Yeah.
Nice. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the HarperCollins Author Academy, which is something that you launched through this COVID downtime, basically. I don't want to call it downtime because I don't think you ever have downtime. But this is something, this is new to HarperCollins, isn't it? So can you tell us a little bit more about that project?
Well, I'd always, as a publisher and as an author, as someone who loves this industry and loves story, I'd always mentored authors or people who want to be authors, because I just felt I wanted to give back in something I really enjoy, and it's something like it was in my hands. You can do it. I've always had this can do. Why not help someone else who's actually, and that had always been a passion of mine, is how do you demystify publishing? And at one point, because the Academy for me came from a personal place, it is very much around after the whole what we experienced last year, after George Floyd's murder, after protests around the world that followed that. I mean, none of us were unchanged, but going back a little from a personal perspective, for me, I remember reading books and never seeing my race represented, or many, I'm a diplomatic kid. I was traveling around the world. I was in international schools most of my life, and you saw these cultures. And for me, in the English reading language, a lot of them were not represented. And so it came, and moving on to that, is that I want my kids to grow up in a world where they see their race represented, or they see their communities represented, or they see, I can do that. And it's kind of the world we're heading towards. So there was all that going on. And I had actually already started thinking what an academy would look like, or what a program might look like. And I was just pleasantly surprised when I took the idea to our CEO and our leadership, and said, we have an opportunity to make a difference here. It's so easy. And when I say easy, it's not like it was a walk in the park. There was a lot of hard work that went behind it.
Yeah.
But we have the capability, we have the know-how, and we have the goodwill. And so the academy was born, and it was done all through lockdown. So it is 6 weeks program where we train and bring on students, author students from an underrepresented racial backgrounds. And that 45 places, and we take on, we'd have 2 terms, so to speak. We're just about to launch the new term on the 5th of July. So admissions will open for the autumn cohort. So yeah, it's really about giving back. And what we do is we have 3 streams in fiction, nonfiction, and children's, 15 people in each. And they have the best tutors in the world, from us, in my eyes, the best tutors out there to teach the craft. But not only that, the beauty of this is that our students are paired with mentors from HarperCollins. Also, we've done masterclasses. I think we have about 15 and growing. Amazing. in the business of publishing. And when I say it's not even authors out there who are currently being published have access to this material, what it is, we might do a masterclass on contracts and legal, what an author needs to know. We have another one, how to work with an agent. How do you find an agent? So we might have one on how books are sold, understand how your books are sold, because that can, and then we have other, we have others in, it's just all areas of publishing. Children's, what's the children's market? What does it mean? YA, all of this, middle grade, and so forth and so forth. So the idea is to demystify publishing, but to also give opportunity, because we do not expect you to, once you finish the course, do you have the opportunity to submit unagented to us, but equally, if you want to be agented, that's up to you. But it's like, and the biggest, I think the beauty of what I love is the alumni program out of it, because anybody who goes through this program is automatically part of our alumni program, which basically means we keep in touch with you. We talk, we might do events, after the whole COVID world. I don't know what that looks like, but whatever that looks like is, it's the dialogue continues. Yeah. And we've had incredible feedback, and it's probably one of the proudest things I've ever done. Just hearing how students have really, really benefited. And I would do it all over again. And I'm so glad we continue to do it. And so, yeah, the academy's there.
How do people get involved with that? Where would they go if they wanted to apply?
So we have a website. It's the HarperCollins Author Academy website, and it is harpercollinsacademy.co.uk. Currently, it's only open to UK residents, UK and Ireland. And who knows, maybe in the future that might change. We ask students to make sure that they have a connection to the internet and are able to get on things like Zoom and some of the other platforms. And that's pretty much it, and bring a lot of, and the other thing is in the application process, of course, we ask you to do show us some of your best writing. It is for people who really want this, who really want, really have, and never had the opportunity. It's about opening opportunity and dialogue. And our teams are so involved in it, and it's it's
Amazing.
such a great thing to see. Yeah.
Amazing. Diversity and inclusion, which is where I think this whole Author Academy really stemmed from, right? Has been a huge topic in business this year, especially off the back of all the George Floyd stuff and the Black Lives Matter stuff. As not only a woman, but a Black woman, I'm curious about what your experience has been. And maybe you would feel like you want to share some of the stories and experiences you've had.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting and a very good and relevant question, because I think I'd start off and say everybody has had a different experience. And that's not to negate anybody's experience. So the first thing I would say is there is a lot of this has to stem from somewhere. It's because people have had an experience. It's historical, it's deeply ingrained in our society, and it has to change. And I think most people would agree with that. And I believe having that downtime in lockdown and COVID, when life was a bit on pause, it gave people the time and space to reflect on these long forgotten things that in many ways have just been accepted. So with that aside, I'm also, from my personal experience, and this is, I don't think I can remember a time where I've had a negative racist experience. And that is not to negate anybody's experience, because it does exist.
Of course.
And I think, and I've always asked myself, why is that? And is it because it didn't exist or didn't happen, or is it because of how I responded to it? And this is something I have to think about, because I have to talk to, I have to explain it to the next generation. And it's possibly because of the way I was raised that sometimes racism is the other person's problem. So if I have never received a job or someone's been rude to me, my first default is not to turn, oh, it's because they're racist, oh, it's because I look like this. And that could be because I choose to see no color. I might be because I try to be maybe a positive. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, and I'm not saying that that's probably not where it came from. But I have chosen personally not to go there, and that's just me. It's because when I look at my life, when something has gone a way that I didn't want it to go, I don't default to, oh, this has to be racism. It's because I'm Black, or it's because I'm a woman, or it's, and I'm not saying that's didn't exist. Of course. It could have been done in that spirit.
Yeah, of course.
But I like the taking the high road attitude of, I take the high road and I say, well, I can't change what a person feels and the way they are.
Yeah.
I can only change how I react to it. And I can only change me. I can't change others. So it's doing things positively in business, especially in business when you're trying to tackle systemic racism and some of these other issues. I think it's to do with, it's all about all of us together, how we can collectively work together. I've just published this book here.
Show us. Still Breathing.
Still
Black
Breathing,
Voices on
100 Black Voices on Racism. So this published yesterday, and that would be in June at the time of recording. And what we've done with this book is two amazing authors and editors have come together and collected 100 voices from all walks of life, whether it's film, whether it's theater, whether it's business, whether it's politics, you name it, every walk of life. Wow. And what they've done is there's sort of a page for every person, and they tell their story. So this is Damien's, for example. So they tell their story in about 250 words about how they've experienced racism. It's a beautiful, colorful book. And we have some big names in here. Some you will know. We've got Beverly Knight in here. Wow. We've got Suzette Llewellyn, who's in EastEnders. We've got Suzanne Packer, and those are our two editors. and people in film, like Michael Obiora here, for example. We've got David Lammy in here, so it's people, and also others maybe you do not know as well. And they've each talked about their experience. So this is where I was going, is you cannot discount somebody else's experience. And it's very important to understand. And it's also important to have the conversations in a respectful way, to have conversations. And I think that's the only thing we can do to change. And I'm a huge advocate in terms of listening to people's stories. That's why I really wanted to publish this book. And I think it will always come up when there is an incident in history around racism, especially in our country. Yeah. It's a very important book, and it's a book that children and adults can read equally and be engaged in. And we were very clear on making it accessible and well designed for a good reading experience. I'm really proud of that one.
Yes, I think it's fantastic. And I love your positive attitude towards it. I think that it's wonderful that I know you personally, and I know you're probably one of the happiest, bubbliest, nicest, I just feel energized and inspired when I'm around you. So I'm glad that you've taken that forward into your life, and if there were any negative experiences, not let them get you down. So that's fantastic.
I think it's
Sorry.
All I was going to say to wrap that one up is that it's important that we acknowledge what needs to change and be part of the change. And I'll be the first one there when there is change that needs to happen. And to listen and to understand how we can make change. And I think it's so important not to discount people's experiences.
Of course. That's why I'm trying to open up the conversation and hear these stories, because I think there's a lot of people who believe, if they're like you and I, and we talk and we're not seeing these lines, and we just think all of that stuff happens over there. In these places that we don't visit. And it's not true. It does have, each person, as you said, does have a different experience, and it can be happening right in front of you. And it's great to just open up and have those conversations. I think a lot of people are scared to have them, but it's not such a scary conversation, is it? And I think it's fantastic that these stories are put in a book that we can all go and read and enjoy. Where do we get that book?
So it's wherever good books are sold, wherever you buy your books, we have made sure the book is available there. So, and it's a lovely hardback. I'm really proud of this work, and it is stories that have to be heard. And also, back to what you were saying, there is this thing that we think things happen over there. But the way we frame this is we might have seen George Floyd and everything that came after that, the aftermath, and think it's over there. But Britain has its own story on racism, and it's all in here. And that's what we wanted to do.
Still breathing 100
Black voices
on racism. Amazing. And Rose, before we go, can you tell me, where can we get the Decrypter series? Where do we go to get that? Fine bookstores as well, I'm sure.
Yes, fine. Predominantly your e-retailers, so that's where you get it. But again, you can get it at it's available where good books are sold as well. Mostly e-tailers, I would say. So you can get it on your Amazons, you can get it on your Kobos, you can get it on your Apples, you can get it on wherever you read digital books. You should be able to get them. And the first book in the series is free. If you want to just sample it, yes, it's free on all retailers. And it's a good way to taste and see if that's for you, and then you can go on to read the rest of the series.
What's the full title of the first book?
So it's The Decrypter: Secret of the Lost Manuscript.
Ooh, interesting. Rose, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're so welcome.
You've been a delight. You have shown so much insight onto the publishing world for us, and shared some really amazing stories. So thank you very, very much, Rose Sandy.
Oh, thank you. Great to be here.